Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the first installment of Grug the Grung, Stories and More. I am Grug the Grung, and this is my pond. Today I bring you the story of a person who has lost a passion for text-based RPGs because of some transphobic pricks and their animosity towards OP's identity. As the premise suggests, warning of transphobia and cyberbullying, so if you would like to excuse yourself, feel free to do so. Now, come lay on the grass, dip your feet in the water, and without further ado, row post. So, before I got into tabletop RPGs, I played a lot of text-based RPGs. For those unfamiliar, you and several other players all contribute with characters to a story run by a DM of sorts. Rather than being on the fly, you type up your responses. It was a standard zombie apocalypse story, and we were allowed more than one character, because text-based. So, I made a scientist, and I also made a veterinarian turned influencer. What's important about the latter character is that she and I had one thing in common. As I had come to terms with my identity, I decided to take a swing at writing a trans character. I made her different enough for me so as to not risk making a self-insert and tried to make her interesting. She didn't go around announcing it to everyone, but due to not being good with people, she was much better with animals. And she let things slip or was clumsy, which would lead to another character working things out. Initially, you had the drama that always comes with text-based RPGs. People dropping without warning, or people ignoring other players' posts, but nothing major. Things would quickly change when, much like my character, I did a clumsy thing. I'd wrongly assumed people knew about my status because of the character I was writing. Because I knew so much and she came across as kinda authentic. Something I got complimented on. I just thought it was something people knew, but never mentioned. The RPG had a Discord server, and one day, one of the players was venting about her time of the month. Something I obviously don't get. Do get hormonal, of course, but it's different. And well, I slipped that I don't get those. Someone then made a comment about trans blokes still needing to do all that, then added they didn't know any trans people. So I responded with, again, I thought people knew. Well, you know me. Things fell apart, and I regret not leaving. One of the DMs basically said, well, I guess there's actually only 4 women in this server. You don't count. Oh my god. Then he tried to goad me into fighting him over it. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Good. What's worse is that nobody really spoke about him acting that way either. At the time, I was thankful for this as he was looking for a reaction. But in hindsight, I realized that it should have been my key to dip completely because it was very telling that nobody was going to be on my side. Even the other DM didn't step in. What a bunch of scumbags! Now, I know it is hard to speak up when social situations get tense, and nobody wants hell to break loose. However, just as OP said, the fact that nobody addressed this situation even after the fact, or that nobody reached out to them, is very indicative of the people that inhabited this server. Unfortunately, things do not get better for OP as they now start a lone battle against a server of bullies. I left the server soon after that, but not the RP itself. I foolishly figured that I'd only have to deal with phobia in the server, but could still take part in the RP and even told the other DM, who was a bit nicer, about this. I was wrong. My posts would be frequently ignored at this point. I'd have one of my characters do something, and then it would either be instantly contradicted by the next post, or I'd be asked to basically go back and delete my post because another player was planning on doing something instead. I didn't actually delete the posts and argued that I couldn't know about the other plans. Nobody actually told me anything. I eventually rejoined the server as I heard the phobic DM was leaving the RP and I figured it would be a better environment. However, I was blocked from certain channels regarding planning the RP, which I'd previously been invited to as I was the longest running player, and my request to rejoin was denied for vague reasons regarding me leaving and coming back. Like, you can't just come back into this position after leaving. But the DM knew my reasons for leaving and returning were nothing to do with the story and instead with the other DM trying to fight me. I was pretty clear with her about it. Like an idiot, I remained in the story as my stuff continued to be ignored and my scientist character was treated as a useless idiot. Like, this came out of nowhere because a new player joined with another scientist, even though the DMs had requested character variety, and sidelines my character, rendering him utterly pointless in the story. Actively working against him, trying to research the plague, essentially. Even changing how the virus had worked from the beginning, just to make him look foolish. It's important to note that the guy who played him was laughing along with the other DM when I was being goaded. And towards the end of my time in the RP, he got quite hostile with me. He didn't say anything phobic like the other DM, but given he was agreeing with him, it's obvious where all this came from. At some point, the old DM rejoins, though as a player, and frequently misgenders me in conversations in possibly the most sarcastic voice I can think of during voice chats about the RP. Like, him! With enough emphasis to strangle someone. And he'd slip it whenever he could, starting and ending all words about me that way. How to tell the difference between someone making a mistake about that and being an asshole is all about the emphasis. And it's also how their behavior changes if they're ever corrected. Needless to say, it was entirely deliberate. Again, I was a fool for not leaving, but at this stage I'd grown quite attached to my character and figured they'd be killed off unceremoniously if I dipped. Also, me leaving would have given both the phobic DM and any pals he had a great deal of satisfaction, so I attempted to stick things out. I was relieved when he left again, this time for good, but sadly the problems didn't stop. Things can be best summed up by more of the same. Posts ignored, requests for player interactions ignored, more of pushing my scientist boy to the side. Even requests to just talk in voice chat were ignored too. It was like I was invisible not only in the server, but in the RP as a whole. Even the friendly DM stole a scene I'd written in which my clumsy vet was opening up about a past trauma. A case of, is this okay to post given the subject matter? I sent to her as a planned upcoming post. Oh gosh, so you sent her a post in advance so she could okay it, and she just stole it instead. That is low. And prior to me being clumsy, that hadn't happened. None of it did. Eventually, due to the hostility from that other player I mentioned, combined with everything else, I finally dipped. TLDR. Play a trans character in a zombie story. Everyone stops being friendly with me when I reveal that she and I have something in common. One of the DMs and his pal bully me over it. Well, it seems like the zombies got to these punks, because this is some brainless behavior. OP mentions that this was a slip-up that caused the whole thing, but I believe you shouldn't have to be precautious in an environment in which you should actually feel safe and comfortable enough to have fun. That is why we play make-believe. Props to OP for standing tall amidst adversity, and I really hope they are able to go back to enjoying text RPGs, but this time without the annoyance of being judged for who they are. Thank you for stopping by my homely pond. If you have enjoyed yourself here today, feel free to follow the channel and accompany me on this journey to level 20. I bid you adieu.